Hello and welcome to a special edition of Horseplayers Happy Hour. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatel, back with you a long way from the Brooklyn Bunker, joining you from Ascot Racecourse in England. I'm here in the press box. I could have tried it outside, but I was a little worried about various things that could have gone wrong if I tried to do this outside. Who knows, maybe for a lap. I'm so close to the parade ring. At some point, maybe we'll walk out there, do a little tour, show folks what's going on. But really happy to be back with you and super happy to be joined for this edition of Horseplayers Happy Hour by the usual co-host of this program. You know him from his own eponymous podcast, his work on NBC and elsewhere from an undisclosed location in New England. I'm in Old England. He's in New England. He is TV's Matt Bernier. Matt, what's happening?
We thought there was a chance there might be a late scratch as we approach post time, but we got Pete here in good order. So what, you just got stiffed on your ride, or what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to bury these guys too bad because the Farnborough taxi service, Euro Taxi, that's been helping me out have been very good. But, not unlike Irad Ortiz in the King's Stand, everybody has a bad day. And such is the case my guys in Farnborough, who my usual guy got sidetracked and his replacement didn't show up. But these things happen. We may, and you know how it is around here, Matt. It's all, you don't just have plan A. You have plan A, B, C, all the way down to Z. So who knows? Maybe it'll end up being more memorable to have me right here from the course. And with an hour past, it's going to be a lot easier to get a taxi to get back home. But yeah, the important thing is we got here, and we're here for another exciting edition of Horseplayers Happy Hour. And there's still time for folks to sign up to this week's contest. Tell them what they can do.
Still got about 5 minutes. Head on over to horseplayers.com. It's right on the top. Horseplayers Happy Hour. It's a $20 buy-in. The juice, the VIG goes to thoroughbred aftercare, TAA and TRF. And you're playing for points toward a year-long regular season. And at the end of the regular season, if you have enough points, you can qualify for the postseason. There are 2 BCBC seats being awarded. The person at the end of the regular season with the most points and the person who wins the playoffs, which get dwindled down week after week. I should also mention that this tournament here this afternoon, if you finish inside the top 10%, you qualify for Saturday's live BCBC qualifier over on horseplayers.com. So again, low entry point. You're playing for points. You're playing for BCBC qualifier entries. And who knows, if you put together a consistent schedule over the summer and into the early fall, you could win yourself a $10,000 BCBCC. And if you don't win during the regular season, maybe you've played well enough that you've positioned yourself accordingly for the playoffs. You put together a good few weeks, and who knows, you could be the postseason champion, shall we say.
And any week you play, look, I mean, obviously your chances go way up if you participate in the tour week in, week out, and have an opportunity to win that seat you get for being the overall winner on the tour. But any week you put your 20 in the hopper and join in these games, if you finish in the top 2 in any one week, that's going to give you automatic entree into the playoffs, where you also can get the tour points, as you explained. So it's really fantastic. 3 ways to win these 2 Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seats. And best of all, those seats come at no additional expense to the players, added by us and our friends at the Breeders' Cup. And again, all the proceeds to benefit Thoroughbred Aftercare. So get involved. As we always say, even if you just got a couple minutes left to handicap, this is the kind of thing, if you just happen to be randomly finding us online, you got to be in it to win it. Throw your 20 in there and play all the 4s, or look at morning lines really quickly and pick every third choice. Do something, but make sure you get involved. And if it's too late for this week or you're catching the replay, we're going to be doing this every Thursday.
This is one of the rare instances where we will allow you to go all 2s. If you do nothing but just punch 2 across or 4 across or whatever it is, it's one of the rare instances where no one will hold it against you.
It will not be frowned. All the 4s not frowned upon in this case. Hopefully Kevin Kilroy, our man, famous for his all the 4s trip to the NHC, will get involved in this as well. Kevin, say hi if you're watching out there. That's the other fun thing about these shows, is it's a real opportunity to interact with the fans, with the viewers. Come on in here. Give us your thoughts. We got a lot cooking throughout the course of this show. Special guest Michelle Yu will be on. My man Callum Hellowell, who went over the Breeders' Cup win in your in races at Ascot with me. We've got a pre-tape with him that's going to be later. You and I, Matt, will be doing the old double duty thing where we kick off the late week in the Money Players podcast by doing a little look back at some of the big performances from Belmont Day. there's a lot going on. And a lot of weeks we'll look forward, though. This week, a little bit of a lull in the racing calendar, I guess, in terms of stakes with how much big stuff has been happening all around the country.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, we all see this. We have those big weeks, and then you get a little bit of a, let's call it a hangover. But at the same time, there is one horse in particular this coming weekend. The stakes calendar may be a little bit on the light side. There is one horse making his stateside return who could figure prominently in the older division, specifically the Classic division, over the summer and into the fall, and hopefully the Breeders' Cup Classic, that being Hot Rod Charlie. We can dive into that a little bit later on.
Yeah, I recommend that we definitely talk about that and see what kind of a line we can get on him and his form. We're getting awfully close to this race at Belmont, Matt. I only had a chance to look at it quickly. Certainly willing to give a thought on it, rapid fire, but very interested to see what, if anything, you came up with in here.
Yeah, I'm going with the 5, Hold the Flight in here, shipping in from Parks. I understand that run 2 starts back. Seems like a bit of an anomaly from a fig standpoint, but this is a field that, they're all consistently in the high 60, low 70 range. I guess if, with Carmouche aboard, if there's a chance that the 5 can be relatively close to the front at 7-2 and can get back to that run 2 starts back, I think this one's at least fair value at 7-2.
No, that's not a bad idea at all. I was agreeing that there's not a whole lot in the way of pace signed on here. I was thinking that Don't Be Late might get the right kind of trip, looking to back up that win at the $16,000 level. Up in class this time, and that may prove to be an issue, but, in pace makes the race terms, I thought there was a little bit of a chance to be made for that one. So the 5 for you, the 7 for me as we get loaded in here. What are your thoughts on this favorite in general?
Let's see. I got to be honest with you. This horse and spectator list come out of that run on May 28th. That came on a fast sealed track. There wasn't much pace signed on that day. I thought Dangerous Edge, grand scheme of things, ran fine. I don't know that I'm in a hurry to bet the horse at 2.5 to 1, but you have to respect anything Rob Attras's barn throws out, and Dylan Davis has been well documented as riding as well as anyone in New York.
All right, they are off and running at Aqueduct. We'll see who ends up making the lead. It looks like it is going to be this 3. That's that spectator list you were referring to, who seemed to me to be a horse that was liable to pop and stop. I love the trip that you're getting, Matt, with Hold the Flight. That's where I was sort of hoping that Don't Be Late would be. But Don't Be Late not in a bad position, just a couple lengths back off of that. I feel good about our opportunities for the 2 runners that we put forward in this race, Matt, to get the jump on the favorites and maybe have the advantage when they turn for home.
Yeah, and one other piece with the 5, it's always difficult to kind of gauge the difference in levels from one jurisdiction to another. This one comes out of N1X races at Parks, goes into a 35 non-winners of 3 lifetime. At face value, this is certainly lesser, but I have to be honest, I think there's probably some similarities as far as the capabilities of the horses are concerned in New York at this level versus the N1X level at Parks.
In fact, the Timeform race rating had that to be a fairly salty allowance that Hold the Flight comes out of. So yeah, I think you can make a case that there is a class drop on offer here, at least when you consider the specifics of who has been facing who. So they're turning in now, and let's see what's happening. My video, a little far away here, getting a bit pixelated. Looks like there's somebody making a move.
Horse.
Yep, the favorite, Dangerous Edge, looks to have put this thing to bed, unless something very unexpected happens here.
Carmouche is boxing on, but I don't think he's going to be able to hang on.
You're punching back, though, but yeah, I think you're right. It's going to come 2-5-3 here to kick off the contest. So, no matter who you played in the Horseplayers Happy Hour contest, it's all to play for. For those that don't know, maybe this is something we'll add to our spiel as well. This is the common $2 win place format that we often see on horseplayers.com, cumulative scores win. And yeah, it's not a format that everybody loves, but I'll tell you what, even if it's not your bag normally, when you have the opportunity to do it for such a low price point with value added to the players, I think it's something, if you're ever going to play, even if you're somebody who doesn't play Mythical Win Place, this is a time to play Mythical Win Place.
I think there's an art to it too. I don't want to call it a dinosaur simply because, we've all sort of gone toward the live money bankroll for a number of reasons, but there's an art to the $2 win place, knowing when to take a shot, when to take your medicine, how you want to go ahead and structure things. Are you purely a probability player saying, look, I need to have 2 of these come in as cap horses So I'm doing nothing but 15 or 20 to 1 shots. Or are you someone that says, you know what, I'm going to look at the card. Maybe it's a little on more formful side. Let me just say we'll take a couple of 2 to 1 shots. We'll just try to accumulate a few bucks here and there, and then maybe we can catch a mid price to put us over the top. I think it's an interesting test. It's different than live bank, different than betting, but it is a test nonetheless.
I wanted to talk about the format. When a couple of weeks ago we came on here, I talked about my desire to try to mirror the regular Horseplayers.com lineup as much as possible. It has not really worked out that way. The regular Horse Players contests have been starting later than they traditionally do. I'm imagining as a result of the late posts at both Woodbine and at Belmont. Now, interestingly, this is the second week in a row that we've done the all Belmont, or the last 7 or 8 at Belmont format, and the market seems to be responding to it, Matt. I mean, we had a big turnout Belmont week. I was thinking, oh, well, maybe that was just Belmont week. I was curious to see how they were going to respond today. What does it look like? How many did we end up getting in total? And I don't know. I mean, I think I want to, when we have the opportunity to mirror the Horse Players contest, I think I want to do that, but it's all about generating money for charity. And if that means that players prefer a one-track model, I mean, there's no reason we can't do it this way. But I did have a couple of people, including David Browning, who won a BCBC seat with us last year by winning the regular season, by winning the tour, essentially, saying, we really liked it the other way. Sometimes our hands are going to be tied. But how do we do in this week's lineup?
Well, so week 1, we had somewhere between 170 and 180 as far as entries are concerned. Last week, we had well over 200. And to your point, I think a lot of that had to do with people are all in on Belmont Stakes. We were going to be talking about some of the stakes action. And I was afraid we'd get a pretty big lull here this week. We got 178 entries. Now, good. Again, I don't know if there is now some signal to the fact that people like all one track, specifically New York, where I think a lot of people devote their time from a gambling standpoint. Maybe they've already handicapped the card. They go, why not? We'll take a shot, throw in $20 and have at it. I like a little bit of variety, but again, to your point, we want to do what all of you playing and watching and listening want to do. If you would prefer one track, and no, we're not going to be on for the final race or 2 or 3, but this is sort of what ends up being the thing that people like the most, we'll do this. We want to get as many people involved as possible. And again, Pete, to your point, it's all helping a good cause. So the more people involved, the better off for everyone. And if one track at a time, specifically Belmont or Saratoga, whenever the season starts, I'm open to that. I'm not against it. I would prefer variety, but if this is what the people want, let's go with this.
Give the people what they want, as the man once said. So yeah, give us let us know in the comments what you think, which format you prefer. I have heard several people who like it the original way, but it's all anecdotal. The proof is in the pudding in terms of what we get out there. I do love being able to announce the winners at the end, and that's something we lose with this format. Now, when I'm back in the USA, my thought is, if I just get in the habit, I could always do that as a tweet that would then function as a commercial for the next week's contest. So
maybe that's
what it is. Come to be. I'm not going to do it tonight. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be asleep by the end of this contest with the 5-hour time difference over here. But it is something to think about. We had a couple of questions. I'll pop in. Oh, this is interesting. I seem to have lost. I'm not logged in, so I'm going to need AJ, if you're paying attention. Yeah, pop in Trish's question there. And I'm so glad you asked, Trish, because this ties in with the Breeders' Cup, because my top hat was made by the official milliner of the Breeders' Cup, Christine Moore, part of the Blake collection over there. Hats that I'm a huge fan of. And yeah, really thank her for doing an amazing job on this one. There's a little video going around online of the fitting that we did the other day at Belmont Park, and that was a ton of fun. And then Rob had a comment as well. But yeah, Christine, you can find her stuff, beautiful stuff for women and men alike. Christine A. Moore. Cam Hats is the handle. Check that out. And Rob Capalbo says, rumor has it they're adding a race at Royal Ascot in my honor called the Duke of Brooklyn Stakes. That's just a rumor, but we're working on it. 32 runner handicap going a mile on the straight. I think it could work out. So we'll see. We'll see, Rob, if we can make that magic happen. I think, Matt, this might be a good time to go to we got 2 pre-tapes. Well, why don't we throw it to the one with Michelle, who I had the great pleasure of catching up with earlier today, right here, just yards from where we're sitting at Royal Ascot.
Hey everybody, Horseplayer Happy Hour here at Royal Ascot with a familiar face to Horseplayer Happy Hour viewers and racing fans in general, Michelle Yu. Michelle, how are things?
Things are great, Pete. I mean, I'm about 4 foot away from a whole case of moves, so I can't be too upset.
Not too bad, and we did get to give you the experience we were hoping to yesterday.
Oh my gosh, it was amazing.
Walking around with a bag of champagne.
A bag of champagne. I had my feet in the grass. I had like no shoes on. I had my dress and my hat. I felt so like ghetto posh.
That's an excellent point.
Yes,
you're going to have to go with. Give folks some idea of what it's like to be here. It's not your first time to Royal Ascot, but I just want to try to give a little view as to the experience for folks watching.
I think it's unlike anything that we have at the States. I mean, people get dressed up for Derby. People party for the Preakness, obviously. Breeders' Cup is all about people wanting to be there for the best races. This kind of ties a little bit of everything. Everybody has to dress up, so that makes it a lot more fun. It's a pilgrimage. I mean, when you get on the train, you're only, 30 miles from London or so, but when you get on the train, everyone's in their top hats and their tails, and they've got hat boxes, and then you get here, like I say, it's champagne abound, it's like luxury food, everybody's having fun and talking about the horses and trying to look good, and the best part is when you order like a champagne, you don't get a glass of champagne, you get a bag of champagne. This is my country, I feel like.
These are your people.
These are my people.
Let's talk about it from a racing point of view. One thing that I like about this, that I liken to the Breeders' Cup, is the Olympics of horse racing vibe. We've seen that on display with our, as of this recording, but hopefully not for the whole meet, unsuccessful USA Challenge. The Aussies, of course, making their mark on this meet, and then you have the usual European, sort of three-way go between the French horses, the Irish horses, and the English horses. Just, expound a little bit, if you will, on the vibe as far as what it's like out there on the track between the different racing clubs.
I mean, it's been pretty amazing to get to watch on the track. Just obviously the way that Ascot's laid out in the triangle formation is very cool to watch the race. The different vantage points that you'll be out there for, I think it's fantastic. You get huge fields. I mean, we watched a 32 horse or 28 horse field yesterday, and you talk about the competitiveness, right? We've had 14 races, 14 different trainers have won the races. So at least at this point in time, there's been no domination by anybody, and I think that keeps it fun and fresh, and I hope that we get to bring some of these winning year horses over for the Breeders' Cup, because it just makes it such a fun international affair, and to have Royal Ascot on your resume when you come in for Breeders' Cup, I think is like, all right, everyone wants to back you.
Something a little bit special, that's for sure, to see these horses a little bit later in the year, hopefully at the Breeders' Cup with these 4 winning year ends. Now, previously on the history of the show, you've been known to call a race or two. You're here working, so I can't make you do that this time, but do you think you'd be up for the challenge? 32 runner, handicap down the straight, you think you could call that?
I could call it if we could do something about the saddle towels. Like if there was Trackist that I could follow, but when they're all, first of all, they don't go in race card order, right? When you're looking at your PPs, they're in a different order than they're actually breaking from the, I mean, everything's different. So I'm like, okay, the one, but he's actually out there. So it's very hard. If there was a Trackist or a color thing I could deal with, yes, but it would be pretty tough to go as is.
All right, well, fair. Then it's good that you're working. I'm not going to make you do that, but I really do appreciate you taking time out on a busy day, giving us a little bit of a flavor of your experience here at Royal Ascot. Any closing thoughts for the Horseplayers Happy Hour fans?
Cheers!
Good stuff. It was great catching up with Michelle. Next year, I got to coach her up a little bit, though. She was in a hurry, making dinner reservations right after the races. She doesn't understand that half the fun of the day is going to these amazing tailgates in the parking lot afterwards and seeing who's around and having a good time. So we'll coach her up and we'll get that going. And we do have some photographic evidence of what I was describing, Matt. Maybe AJ can pop that in there.
Oh,
yeah, there we are. There's the bag of champagne right there. And I think we have a close-up too. Yeah, there you go. That was
ice bag.
Yes, we were hanging out. Yeah, oh, it was fantastic. Hanging out in the gardens, the Royal Enclosure Gardens, and just having an absolutely great time. Couple more comments to drop in. This Tom Espinoza comment, AJ, I think that's the perfect one to segue to right now, the one that starts with as long. Yeah. Oh, well, we'll do it. We can do AJ Benton, who points out, great to see me at Belmont. And yeah, Flightline, pretty awesome. We'll put a pin in that. We'll come back to that one a little bit later. John, weighing in on the one track versus multiple tracks question, says he agrees that being in line with them when it makes sense is something to do. But hey, this is the plan B. And these late posts, I mean, gosh, I mean, it's kind of insane how quickly we're going to be in Saratoga, and we're not going to. It won't be nearly as much of an issue.
I think the big piece is that this is a mere a few weeks, before things kind of go back to, I don't want to say normal, but I mean, Belmont only runs these afternoon cards so often. So, I mean, we're I don't want to say much to do about nothing, but it's more a matter of kind of what John just commented on. Do you want one track, or do you want to align with everything that Horseplayers and Horse Tourneys puts out?
Yeah, exactly. All right, the taxi driver calling me right now, actually.
Pick up. Yeah. Tell him. Too late, man.
Put up Nathan's quote. Anything that pokes fun at gently at JK, we'll take. Yep, got more style today than even JK. Good stuff. All right, how many minutes do we have until the next race at Belmont?
16.
I think we should do a little open and look back at last weekend if that suits you. Let me just text this driver and tell him to just come back at 9:15. No, not 9:15, 10:15. I gotta get the clock right. Yeah, is that right? Yeah, because it's 9:25 now. We'll just tell him 10:15. Okay. And then I'm gonna bring this in as if it was the start of the regular show. Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players podcast. This is our show for Friday, June 17th. We're doing that thing where we double up some Horseplayer happy hour to give you a little taste of that, along with the regular late week show. You can find all our shows over at inthemoneypodcast.com. You can subscribe to us on iTunes, and you can subscribe to us over at YouTube as well. It really helps, actually, if you rate and review and leave comments and all that stuff, helping people to find the shows. But we're going to kick off this show with a little segment where we look back briefly, since it's already been covered elsewhere in the network, but still I haven't had a chance to chat about it yet. And, of course, Matt Bernier, who's always with us on Horseplayer Happy Hour, here with me today. Matt, what'd you think of that Belmont Stakes?
I thought the race was I thought it was good. I thought it played out as far as the positional pieces are concerned the way I thought it would. The top four horses with a half mile left to go. They didn't finish 1, 2, 3, 4. They kind of just, moved around a little bit, but they were your superfecta. No one really made up any ground from the back of the pack. I know a lot of people want to just say, Rich Strike, it was a one-off situation. He was never going to have success with that running style in the Belmont Stakes. It just doesn't work. Horses that did have success, though, the two Pletcher runners. I mean, for him to run 1-2, for the Ortiz brothers to run 1-2, for Mike Rapoli to run 1-2 in New York's biggest race, and to see his emotion after the race, I thought it was a fabulous result. Mo Donegal, I have no knock against the effort. I thought it was really good. I'll be curious to see if he can replicate it at a shorter distance against better horses. And I mentioned it on my show on Monday, not to say or suggest that it would have been a difference maker, because Mo Donegal finished considerably faster than Nest did. But I'd be curious to know, if you reverse the trips with Nest down on the inside, does the result change? If she's able to get clear and run on when she wants to go, does that make a difference? Because she was bottled up for quite a while, and at that point, Mo Donegal had flown the coop.
Yeah, and don't forget, Nest didn't break well either. So
Yeah.
I think this is a case where you trade the trips. You can make a really compelling argument that you do trade the result, because it wasn't just the one spot of trouble, it was the two. Not to take anything away from Mo Donegal, I think they're both excellent. We thought they'd both be suited to that test. We know the Todd Pletcher training style, grinding, enough tactical speed, very grinding. They seem to want to run all day. He gets the most out of them. That was certainly on display in this year's Belmont Stakes. And let's pause on Rich Strike for a second. I mean, I think you basically put the nail on the head. And I don't mean to be nasty about this horse, and I feel bad if I've written some fairly cheeky things about him. The line, did you see the line about expecting Rich Strike to win is like finding a wallet on a street corner on Saturday and going back on Sunday and expecting to find another one? It's a little dismissive. I mean, look, the horse won the Kentucky Derby. You can't take that away from him. He provided a great viral moment for horse racing that got a lot of people looking and interested. And, I mean, that's all cool stuff. And there's nothing against him or his people. And I wouldn't be expecting him to win any big races necessarily from here on out. But, I don't say that with any malice. I just, we analyze races. That's what we do. That's the way I see it. Hey, I'd love to have him kick sand in my face again in a sense, because sometimes it's fun to be surprised as an analyst. But there's no, I didn't want to come off as, I don't think "See, I told you so" is ever a good look for an analyst.
No, and to be fair, I don't think the Belmont is the right race to be sort of doing that with. The Belmont is a very cut and dry run style race, and he didn't have it. So I'm not going to sit here and say that he can't run because he didn't run well in the Belmont. With a hotter pace at a shorter distance that could help accentuate a late kick, is it possible? Of course. Again, my opinion on him really hasn't changed much. He ran in the Kentucky Derby. He had an off the charts setup. He took advantage of it. He got a brilliant ride, and he ended up winning. Do I think it's likely that happens again? No, probably not. But who's to say? For whatever reason, I'm making it up. The Travers, all hell breaks loose. They go 45-4 for a half mile, and the exact same thing presents itself, and he's ready to run. Is it possible? Anything is possible, but I just don't think if you want to sit there and say, see, I knew he was no good. The Belmont's not the race that you should be using or can use, in my opinion anyway, to sort of validate one's opinion prior to the run, because the Belmont, we've talked about it, it's an anomaly. It's such a different race than any other race we have in the United States that I don't think anyone should be making any declarations on the Belmont. And it's my favorite race that we have all year.
Yeah, there was no way that was going to be a meltdown. That's what he needs. I think back to Giacomo. Now, Giacomo was a better horse with better form by a lot heading into the Kentucky Derby than Rich Strike was. I think he only won one ever race ever. That's San Diego, where he got a great pace scenario. Maybe with it, who knows? I mean, now granted, the Travers looks so salty. I can't really see a world in which I pick him in it. But maybe there'll be a race somewhere down the line, Jockey Club Gold Cup or something, where there's a ton of pace, and he's going to be able to benefit from a meltdown again. Heck, what an irony if I end up picking the horse down the line. Could absolutely happen. That's horse racing.
Not to go way down the rabbit hole, but a side story is the figure for the race. And now here's a piece that could potentially, if you're someone who is still is a big Rich Strike fan, I don't want to call it devil's advocate, but the flip side to that is Timeform US had the race considerably faster. Andy Beyer wrote a piece about the Beyer speed figure for this race compared to the Brooklyn. They went, considerably slower. I think 2+ lengths slower. Good older horses, solid older horses. If you went just on the clock, there's a scenario in which you're looking at, for Rich Strike, if you want to use that 20-point differential from Timeform to Beyer, he ran about a 95, which would not be far off from his Kentucky Derby figure. So, again, I'm more interested in that going forward. Which of those two races, the Brooklyn or the Belmont, is the one you want to really buy stock or put stock into the numbers? Because there's a scenario in which, as unlikely as it may seem, the Belmont is much faster than what the Beyer would indicate. Or you could look at it the other way and say, this is the number for the 3-year-olds, and all of the older horses who have been remarkably consistent for some time, for whatever reason, regressed 15 points. And that doesn't seem likely to me, but again, that's the art of speed figure making.
I talked to Sean Borman about it and asked him just basically that exact question: who's right, Timeform or Beyer, according to the way you make figures. He put it pretty much in the middle, which is often a good way of assessing when you get radically different figures between Beyer and Timeform as we have in this. But even that pulls them all towards something that, I think people are a little knee-jerk reaction about, well, how good is this crop if Rich Strike won the Derby? And they might not be looking at it right because, and this is a good segue, excuse me, we not only have the result of the Preakness, which was a fast race, but if you give the extra credit to the Belmont, and then you look to runners who are going to be coming back, specifically Jack Christopher, who was so impressive. Give me your assessment of his performance from the Woody Stevens.
Brilliant. I mean, and he's been brilliant in both of his starts so far this season. I was way against him had he run in the Breeders' Cup last year, just because I felt like as a 2-year-old, it looked like he ran like a horse with his hair on fire. Just he was too fast for his own good. He just had to go. And I was a little bit dubious. That combined with the pedigree about how far he wanted to go. At this point, through 2 starts, to me, he looks like a much more relaxed version, and the talent is still off the charts. Chad talked about him a little bit as a 2-year-old, saying he is as good as I've ever had. And then I think as a 3-year-old, I don't want to say he got lost in the shuffle, but I brought it up on my show a few weeks ago. I mean, he has Zandon, he has early voting, he has Jack Christopher. I mean, there's a scenario in which early voting is the 3rd of the 3 in Chad's barn, which is wild because he's run arguably the fastest at the longest sort of more classic distance. Jack Christopher's 107 buyer, I think, is brilliant. He deserves to go to the Haskell. He deserves to be a short price in the Haskell. I would have to wait and see what the field looks like, but boy, I'm not in a rush to go against that horse right now.
No, I totally agree. It's going to be fun to see what happens, and fascinating. Chad Brown, I've gotten the impression from my conversations with him that Travers, real bucket list item. It wouldn't shock me if he goes triple-handed there, assuming Jack Christopher doesn't show any limitations and does what we think he's going to probably do in a race like the Haskell. With him and early voting and Zandon, he might not take too many chances and say, you know what, I'm going to get my Travers this year and put that three-headed monster in the gate. Everybody else. And there's going to be other great horses in there, Epicenter pointing towards that. And, you would have to think that Botanical would be heading that way. These things could change so much, but the fingers are crossed that this could be a real Travers to remember.
Well, and I think the other thing, too, is to your point, Pete, you bring up that people are so knee-jerk about, oh, well, Rich Strike won, this group must not be any good. When leading into it, no, they weren't off the charts fast, but I think in totality, I think it's been a pretty consistently solid group from start to finish. Sure, some of the jurisdictions were a little bit lackluster this year compared to years prior, but, you get through the Triple Crown now, and you look at the number of triple-digit buyers that have been earned by 3-year-olds. I mean, I don't have anything. This is purely anecdotal, but I mean, over the past few years, I would say there have been as many triple-digit buyers in this Triple Crown, and I understand Jack Christopher didn't run in one of those races, but earned by 3-year-olds at this point in the year than any other year I can really remember, maybe with the exception of 15, which in hindsight was probably one of the best 3-year-old crops of the past 30 years. When you go Pharaoh and you go Frosted and Firing Line and Dortmund and some of these other horses that went on to do big things going forward. I mean, I think this is a pretty good group. And you're right. The Travers is going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out.
One more point I'll make about how this group might not be as bad as, some have talked about is we have much more confirmation now about the Wood figure and how good of a race that was, a race that, Sean Borman had closer to like a 105. And that's looking a lot better with early voting running the 105, Mo Donegal coming back to win this, and then even Skippy Longstocking propping up that form a little bit. So that was a really strong race. And
Pete, I will say, not to interrupt if you want to go in that vein from a fig standpoint, again, just sort of, do with it what you will. Mo Donegal had paired up 96s before the Belmont Stakes. If you use the time form fig and take 20 off, you're at 107. Yeah. So it's not an implausible move. Again, you as the handicapper need to decide what you want to do with it. But to your point, if you use that Wood, let's say you use Sean's fig of a 105 or somewhere thereabouts, I had heard that Wood could be closer to a low 100 than the number it earned. If that's the case, early voting comes back with a 105. There's a scenario in which Mo Donegal comes back with a 105 or a 107 in the Belmont. I mean, and again, Skippy Longstocking he's actually kind of the constant, or if you're looking for variables and things like that, he may be the one you want to use as the barometer, because he continues to improve slightly, but for him to keep running as competitively as he has, I think that speaks volumes.
All right, we have to do a minute on Flightline, and then for the horse player happy hour people, we got to get to this next live race. Let's talk real quick about Flightline. How impressed were you with this performance?
I was in the studio at NBC. We're watching the race, and myself and a couple of the researchers and obviously the guys up on the set, we all just gasped when he just tipped out and went on with it. And I said, this is the only sort of concern that I still had was, could he ship out of California? Could he do it against better horses? Could he do it from off the pace? I know he had kind of done it before, but with everything that went against him in the Met. And I thought the ride on Speaker's Corner was brilliant. Make things tight, make him in a bit of a tight situation that he's uncomfortable or unaccustomed to. And he overcame all of it. And he still went out there and earned a 112 buyer. I mean, I have, at this point, I said on my show, his next race, whether it's the P Classic or they were to wait for the Breeders' Cup, whatever it may be, it should be at 1.25 miles. And I don't think anybody can beat him at 1.25 miles, even if he's never done it before. I don't need to see anything else. He's the best horse in training.
It was awesome. He overcame adversity and really, really showed something in that spot. The Pacific Classic makes a ton of sense to me if that's the way they go, because, obviously a horse that's had some issues, trouble keeping him at that peak fitness. That's why we've only seen him run whatever it is 4 times. So if the Pacific Classic happens and then something were to go awry, at least then you've proved the 1.25 miles. And if the Pacific Classic works out, then, you obviously you go for the Breeders' Cup Classic and look for, potentially cap off this Hall of Fame brief. But if he does those 2 things, I think we could just go ahead and say it. That would be a Hall of Fame career from Flightline. And with that, if you're watching the Late Week Show, we're going to go to a break. And if you're with us here, we're going to go to this next race at Belmont. If you want to pop that in there, AJ, I think I timed that right, where we've got about a minute.
Very well.
So yeah, 2 minutes even. Oh, perfect. We've got a heavy favorite here, Matt, in the form of the 4-runner, Just a Nyquist, this 3-year-old filly, coming out of a near miss at a very similar level last time for him, U.S. ratings-wise, race ratings-wise. This is an easier group. Do you think Just a Nyquist gets it done, or can we find something interesting for contest purposes?
Well, I mean, I went against her in here, and maybe I'm way off. I just think even money is very, very short on a filly that purely on numbers. I don't think she's head and shoulders better than the rest of the field. Certainly she's the horse to beat, but I don't know that I'd be, in a hurry or cutting people in line, as Jonathan would say, to bet her at 4 to 5 right here. I don't love it, but I went with the first-time starter for Clement, the 6, in my wake. Past year, first-time starter, turf route, Naira, 6 for 26, 11 in the money, 446 ROI for Clement's barn. Midshipman's a fair enough turf sire, 13% with turf routers. This one's a half to a New York bred that couldn't get through the New York bred N2X condition, but did earn high 70, low 80 buyers. Clement has been known to win routing first out of the box. Wouldn't stun me if this one ran well. 6 to 1. I guess you could look at that as a positive that this one's third choice right now. But again, it has more to do with Just a Nyquist could win by 3, and I would still think 4 to 5 is too short on her.
Yeah, probably short enough. There's some weird X factors in here. What about number 7, hilarious name, being out of Bear's measure, but unqualified going here? Just has that one race at $1 billion to 1. But I mean, it was against special weights, and just extrapolating pace figures, a chance that she could be on the lead here. This seems like a good race to take a shot with something wild. You get in nice and light with the Apprentice. I give this horse a legitimate chance, and you're looking at what, 19 to 1?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to talk anyone off of an interesting opinion in here. She's by Gormley, who has gotten off to my boy. And again, I sound like a broken record to anybody that's heard this before. I wish we had seen him on grass, because I thought he would have been fabulous. He's off to a very, very good start as far as a turf sire is concerned. Actually, just a sire in general, but especially so on the grass. I'm not going to fault you for taking a shot here on a horse that chased a hot pace first out of the box against better. Blinkers go on. There is a little bit of turf pedigree there if it takes on weaker. I mean, truth be told, I would take the 20 on the 7 over the 4 to 5 on the 4 every day of the week.
Yeah, for sure. Chris asked if he's late to the party, or says he's late to the party. Is this the second week or the third? This is the third. So you really don't have to worry about it, because only 8 scores are going to count in terms of your total tour score. I think that's right. I think we decided 8. I should check the rules. But so yeah, you're fine, man. We're going to be going every week pretty much until the Breeders' Cup. And then Chris puts forth the idea that, while the 4 is the horse to beat, the 5 at 11 to 1, second turf route, tries, lost on yielding, and 2B ran well with trouble. So we'll see what happens with that idea from Chris about the 5-runner in the spot at 11 to 1. Yeah, I mean, if the 4 does, if the 4 is a likely winner, clearly on figures and form, but probably too short, surely too short for my taste at even money. So we'll see what happens. Thomas Espinoza chimes in that Skippy reminds him of a Jesus's team, regularly hitting the board at big odds. I totally see it. There it is from Tom. That's a good observation. It is funny sometimes these horses can give you just vibes that remind you of other horses that we've seen over the last few years. So we're going to get this race in. We're going to do a couple more questions. We've got another pre-tape that I'm excited to set up for us that hopefully Breeders' Cup will be able to ultimately use for their social media. But for now, we're going to get ready to go to this fourth race at Belmont and see if any of our horses can get the job done. I definitely think for me, I'm going to be pretty disappointed if we don't bounce out there under the apprentice with this 7-runner and get right to the lead. We'll see. We'll see how it all shakes out in Belmont's fourth race coming up right now.
Pete, your overall feelings on how the first few days of Royal Ascot have gone?
Well, the Americans haven't exactly covered themselves in glory. I can say that much. But we've got a lot more chances coming up. I don't know who's more frustrated right now. Irad Ortiz or Frankie Dettori. Dettori's had some miserable luck compounded today when it seemed for all the world like he was going to get the winner with the Queen's horse, whatever that thing was called, Reach to the Moon. And just the other horse just kept finding and was denied victory there. Irad's got kind of a bad bashing in the media here. And I mean, I think it's unfair. The level of criticism he's gotten, I think, is unfair. But obviously, I mean, we brought it up on some of the shows beforehand. It is a risk bringing your own rider in some of these spots because of some of the unfamiliarity. And I was talking about that in terms of when to make moves on courses, but apparently just even with the rules in the start. But mostly I feel bad for him. And the story I really want to have before this Ascot is over is an Irad Ortiz winner. I'd love to see it. 2 live chances with Ruthin and Campanelle. We'll see if we can get the job done there. But tomorrow is amazing too, where we've got our 2 runners in the Coronation Stakes and Slipstream, a runner I like a lot. I mean, in very deep, but should be fun to see and hoping that things can bounce back. All right. Well, doesn't look like things are going to work.
Come on, Trevor.
For
down the center of the track.
You're making.
Come on, Trevor, right on by.
Let's see if you can get home here.
Oh yeah, for fun.
Yeah, that's great. The big favorite never gets involved, and yeah, that was a nice pick, Matt.
Nice price too. I was stunned. 7-1.
Yeah, that's terrific. Excellent contest race. That will definitely shake things up. We'll do, once that goes official, we'll do one run through the leaderboard. I'd love to give shout outs to the people who are playing. Obviously,
I can guarantee Mike Baychak had this horse. Guaranteed. It's the pet. It's our pet angle.
Oh, is that right? That's a big
first time starter routing on turf.
Yeah. 7-1.
It's the pet angle. I can guarantee Mike has the horse. I would put my life on it.
Well, we'll see. We'll see his name there, hopefully on the leaderboard. I am excited. Yeah, that's right. Clement.
Oh, he picked the 1. Mike, what are you doing? Oh, he's got 2 entries. Wait a minute. Hopefully,
maybe he split. It's a good race to split.
He did. He had the 6 on another ticket.
Okay. You'd have to text him. I owe him a text. I'm remembering. If he happens to be watching. But yeah, good stuff. Clement, maybe that's a signal for tomorrow. Now, personally, I think Spenderella looks better than Pizza Bianca on numbers heading into the Coronation Stakes. But I want to see them both run well. And then Slipstream is just an interesting horse. I mean, probably in too deep tomorrow, but one I'm just excited to see run. And again, I just at this point, not that Love Reigns ran poorly, I just expected her to run better. But yeah, and then we've had a couple of way back in the fields. It's time to get things turned around for the USA contingent over here at Royal Ascot. So we had we don't have to put the question up. I'll just paraphrase it. But we had a question, Matt, about how you describe like what you do.
I was reading that.
Yeah, I don't really understand. It's strangely worded, but I mean, it is an interesting thing. People ask me what I do. I run a small media company and I do freelance writing and broadcasting. How do you answer that question?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that would probably be something similar at this point. I think the thing that confuses folks is that now I do some more, I don't want to call them mainstream sports as opposed to just horse racing, but it's much of the same. I'm a handicapper. I try to go through and find value, whether it's horses, whether it's hockey, the Premier League, if I'm betting on baseball on my own or football, whatever it may be. And that's why I say it with my pod, as part of In the Money Media. At the end of the show, when I go into U.S. Open golf this week or, the Stanley Cup final, I go, if you're only here for horses, you can check out now. It's all good. No harm, no foul. If you're curious, even if you want it just purely for a fade and you don't like who I like, stick around. We'll chop it up for a little bit. So that would be the way that I would describe it. I'm just a handicapper. I'm someone who tries to go through, find some value. I can pinch hit in a hosting position if need be. But for the most part, yeah, I'm a handicapper.
Speaking of which, you may be doing that next week because I do not trust we'll see. If I'm wrong and there is a good cell signal on the island off the coast of Scotland where I'm going to be, I will definitely pop in and at least say hello, or if not, fully co-host. But I have a bad feeling that it's going to be not great.
Where are you going to be?
It's called Islay. So this is an island off the west coast of Scotland that is famous for its whiskey, typically known for like the peaty, smoky type whiskey, supposedly where Scotch whiskey was invented. Though I'm sure there are people in the Highlands who will tell you that's, bogus or whatever. But yeah, I'm doing a little tasting trip, just taking a few days. I don't really take days off, so I'm going to actually take a few days off and chill out over there. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see if I can get it. I was looking at the weather. It's beautiful here today, 80 and sunny. There, it's kind of amazing. 50 and rainy basically every day I'm supposed to be there. But I mean, hey, that's good whiskey drinking weather, so I'm not too worried about it. I've been fortunate. My wife and I, we went over to Barcelona a number of years ago, and we went and met some friends who were stationed over at Ramstein in Germany. We did that trip, but then a few years later, we went to Scotland, and it is my favorite place I've ever been. Awesome.
Did you play
some golf up there?
I did. I got to play at the old course, which was fabulous. It was on about 3 hours of sleep. So, I mean, that was actually my first preparation for having a baby. Was getting up and carrying the sticks on your back and just having at it. But Scotland it's the favorite place I've ever visited. Yeah, if you don't like cold and wind and rain, it's probably not your cup of tea. But St. Andrews, the town is fantastic. We went up into the Highlands. We went to Edredor, which is
I've been there.
Yep, fantastic little tour. We went through and did that whole thing.
So that's a really cool distillery near the Lockbury area. Yeah.
Yep. We went. We stayed just on at a little cottage on Loch Ness, where the family that we stayed with, they had these two, not to go down memory lane, but they had these two. I guess I feel bad saying this. What's a baby cow? A calf?
A calf.
That one of the mothers had abandoned her. So they had to bottle feed this calf, which again, it's a baby, but a baby cow is still pretty big. So she comes bounding over. Her name was Panda because she had black and white. And they were feeding her out of the bottle, and she was just the sweetest thing. We went and saw all these different Highland cows, or the coos, I guess is how they would say it over there, the locals. But man, I tell you what, I love Scotland, so I'm envious of you.
We'll take a lot of pictures and send them forth for sure. Good stuff. All right, what do we want to do here? Let's do a quick leaderboard run, and then we're going to throw it to our second pre-tape. But just for fun, and like I said, to give some shout-outs, hopefully we have enough separation. I'm going to need a little zoom in on that way. Maybe I can just full screen it. Yeah, that'll do. Sean Nolan in first, clear right now, 37-10. Ray DiCarlo. Togo Travaglia, good to see that name back on the leaderboard. Gregory Lewis, another regular. Zachary Agamemnoni. Matt Miller, good to see that name. Jamal Barnett, who haven't seen him in a while. Good to see him playing as we predicted, or as you predicted quite correctly. Mike Bachok in there, the $1 Million Man. Stephen Dudenoff, Austin Kale, Paul Weiser, Julie LeBoyko, Chris Podratz, Mark Wilgard, Ryan Henderson, Matt Vagvolgi, final table list from last year, Kenneth McCowan, John Bull III, and Don Dilfer. That's all those folks in that scrum at 2580. Reminder of how it works. The top 10 are going to get points for the overall tour. Obviously, if you win the tour, that gets you a seat. And then top finishers on the tour who do not, who still have the ability to qualify into that private tournament, essentially just 80 people at the end of the year to win a second seat. So there's a lot of different ways you can win. And then, of course, the top 10% advance to Saturday. All right. One of the things we want to do on the shows that we've been doing on the shows this year is to provide full coverage of Breeders' Cup Win and You're In action. This week's Win and You're In races have already happened. And check this thing out I did earlier today. with my man Callum, who's one of the researchers that I work with at Sky. We had a chance to catch up in the pre-parade ring. Here in the pre-parade ring at Royal Ascot with my man who is a researcher for Sky Sports Racing. Did such a great job on our Baby Talk show. He is Callum Hellowell. Callum, how are things?
Oh, they're good. They're warm. They are hot. We are very, very warm here. Things are getting slightly out of hand under the three-piece suit, but we're keeping it on top. We're looking calm and collected.
That's the plan anyway. We're going to review some of these Breeders' Cup win and you're in races we've seen at Royal Ascot so far. We'll start off with the first race of the meet, the Queen Anne Stakes, which was won, of course, by Baid. Can we confidently say Baid is the best miler in the world at this point?
Baid on the turf, best miler in the world. There's no doubt about it. He's first, the rest of nowhere. It's people will question the winning distance, and he didn't dominate like Frank Hill did in the past. But at the end of the day, he was swinging. Jim Crowley was cruising aboard that horse, and I cannot wait to see where they go with him next. It looks likely they'll step him up in trip to 10 furlongs, go for the Judgment at York, and if he does win that, then we're talking a very, very serious horse.
Can't wait to see that. What do you think the chances are they might cut back after that to a race like the Breeders' Cup Mile?
I'd love to see them try it. I think it's a great way to secure his legacy. I think it's something that Frank Hill never did was go overseas. And I think that really didn't disparage his legacy, but you could never say he was the greatest because you just don't know what he's like when he travels and takes on the best from overseas. And I think with Europe's great record in the Breeders' Cup turf, I'd love to see him go over there and give it a crack. But he's at Shadwell. They have plenty of options for him there. So maybe the Judgment will be the last place you see him, but we'd like to see him at the Breeders' Cup for sure.
Now, you mentioned the Breeders' Cup Turf mile and a half. Wouldn't it make more sense to cut him back for the mile, or you think it could go either way?
Well, they talk about how quick these races are run over in the States and how sharp they are. And maybe even the further step up in trip could be an option because with a horse with that talent, with his cruising speed, you can do literally anything with him because he is just such a powerful traveller. And that's what you can really see when you watch a replay of the race. He just cruises into his races. And he's got so much underneath him. And Jim Crowley's not even released half of him yet. I'm sure there's plenty more horse.
Let's move on to more win and you're in action in the form of the King's Stand Stakes. Obviously, we've heard the tales about Golden Pal, the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. Victor didn't really get his fair chance. What we did see was a very impressive winner.
Let's just put it this way. If Golden Pal had got out 2 strides in front of Nature Strip, if Golden Pal had got a furlong in front of Nature Strip would have still won. That horse is a freak. Ladies and gentlemen, he is the greatest, fastest thing I've ever seen in my life. 8 years old, chestnut, built like a cow. He's a monster. And he absolutely dominated, something I was so excited to see. He came with such hype. The Australians came and they often overhype their horses, but my goodness, he was good, very good. We get to see Home Affairs coming up later on in the week as well, and that'll be fascinating because the Australians really do have a stranglehold of the sprint turf division.
Best turf sprinters in the world we've known for quite some time. As for Golden Pal, hopefully a chance to regroup. Maybe he can regain his title, regain his status with the rest of his campaign, culminating in another Breeders' Cup performance. What do you think? You give him a chance to bounce back?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think the start, you can put a line through his Ascot race. It was great that they came over, and we are so grateful for someone like Wesley Ward to send these horses over and take a risk, because it is a massive risk to take. But I still think he's got a lot to prove, and I think he goes to the Breeders' Cup, and I'd love to see him blitz him. Absolutely blitz him.
You can hear your passion, your enthusiasm for racing. You're not faking this up here.
Oh gosh, I am faking how composed I am under this heat. But that's the only thing I am faking. Aside from that, I'm all good.
Let's talk about the Prince of Wales Stakes, Wednesday's win and your in race. What did you make of this one?
State of rest, state of rest, state of rest. You're talking about a horse that has done it in 4 different Group 1 races in 3 different continents. He goes to America and wins the Saratoga Derby. He's already been to Australia and won the Cox Plate, which is not a donkey race. The Cox Plate is one of the greatest turf races of all time. He goes and smashes up in that. Then he finishes the Cox Plate, and just to put things in perspective, he goes to the Prix Gannet, one of the premier French races, and wins that. And at odds of 5-1 yesterday. 5-1. People still don't put respect on his name. Put some respect on that horse's name, because he's a monster. The Iron Horse, Kevin Blake, who bred him, part owns him, he said, he would run over a bus for you. This horse is tough as nails. The Iron Horse, the Giant's Causeway, but this horse has to be in a very similar vein.
Oh, fantastic stuff. And one you got to imagine we are going to see at the Breeders' Cup because he takes on every challenge, travels all over the world.
You would absolutely love to see it. He's been bought by various connections in Australia, in Ireland. There's different ownership strategies there, and they would know more than I'd know. But I mean, if you've got a horse that can do it, if there's a horse that can travel, my God, it's him.
I'd love to see it. Great tactical ride there as well. Very exciting.
Shane Cross, the young man Shane Cross. All the cojones on that boy. The horse has never led a bit of work in his life, and he just leaves the Group 1 in a new country. He does their business. Too good. Too good.
One more race to talk about as far as the win and you're in stuff goes. The Norfolk, which happened earlier today as we're filming this. Big upset in this one. What did you make of the Riddler?
Huge upset for the Riddler. 50-1 the odds were. Came from one side of the track to the other. Took every single horse with him. If it was in America, he would never have kept the race. But in Britain, he manages to keep it somehow. I think Ammo Racing, who had the second and the third, are furious. They're not very happy about it. Kia Jabba is not happy. But you know what's great is that he's got every opportunity now to go over to the States. If I was his connections, I would be straight over to the USA. I'd be doing as much as I can to get as good a result as possible because You've got all the options in the world for you now. It's opened up. He's 50 to goddamn what? Come on. Come on.
Now, I'm assuming the name, I'm just envisioning that he has a perfect question mark for the Blaze. Is that, did you clap eyes on this thing in the paddock?
Did I clap eyes on the thing in the paddock? I didn't look at the horse in the paddock. It was 50-1, for God's sake. I was looking at the other horses. I was looking at the Antarctic. I was looking at Woolback. I didn't look at the 50-1 shot trailing around at the back of the pack. Iron Hooves. I was never looking at that.
We'll see if we can find a picture. I have a feeling it's going to be some cool Blaze in the form of a question. That would be the best name of the day if that's
absolutely. He and do you know what? A Royal Ascot winner is a Royal Ascot winner, and you have no idea how these horses can improve. I remember Berkshire Shadow winning here last year, and people were going, "Oh, is he any good?" And then turning up and running an absolute belting race over the mile last time out just a few days ago. So these horses, it doesn't matter the odds. They've probably run 3 or 4 times in their career. Let's see what you can do. Take them to America, see what you can do. When you're in, baby, you're in.
I love it. Callum, thank you so much for sweating with me here. We'll be talking soon.
Cheers.
How fun was that? I love
Get him a podcast. Holy smoke. How good is he? Are you kidding me?
I was just thinking watching it. He reminds me of a young Matt Bernier.
How good is he? Holy smokes. I love the enthusiasm, but not just the enthusiasm, but the knowledge. You know, there's substance there. It's not somebody just blowing hot air. I thought he was great.
As I said when we had him on the Baby Talk show to preview Royal Ascot, I said the man's clearly a genius because his job is basically with the research work he does on TV to make me look good. So he manages that trick. He can pretty much do it all.
I tell you what, my buddy John Furlong at NBC, same idea where he knows everything. He scored out on Tribhuvan last weekend, but he is, he's just a wealth of knowledge because that's what the job is. He knows the ins and outs of everything. So Callum, I thought he was fabulous. I thought he was fantastic.
Super, super fun stuff, and I really do hope we get to see. We're not going to see the Aussie, but if we can see 3 of those 4 win and you're in horses come to the Breeders' Cup, how great would that be? Let's close out with a quick thought from you, Matt, and the one comment from Nancy on the format things, and then I think this guy's finally waiting for me outside. So got to do the whole show while waiting for a taxi.
The only thing I would throw out there was what the two of you were chatting about with Joseph O'Brien's horse. I mean, at this point, for a horse to run as well as he has in so many different places, but he continues to kind of get disrespected. It's fascinating. I don't remember the last horse that continued to acquit himself, yet everyone continued to doubt him. That's what this horse feels like to me.
Yeah, I guess they might be tempted by Australia, but boy, with the win and you're in, with being able to get that travel money, the entry money, and just the challenge of running and being one of these stories at the Breeders' Cup turf, I hope that they can't resist and they come to see us. Let's pop in this the second of the 2, or actually they look like they're the same. Nancy, thank you for saying we are doing a great show, chiming on the format. Prefer the multi-track aspect, looking at multiple tracks anyway, and also that's right. Because when you're only one track, the weather can really mess with you. Well, I think we're going to play by ear. We're going to see Horseplayers. We're reacting, right? They're under the gun. We're sitting on the button. They move first and they decide what they're going to do. And when we can do what they're going to do and give you guys a great contest, we're going to do it. And when we can't, we're going to come up with plan B. So I think that's the obvious solution.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, at this point, it's still early enough in the season. We'll take a look and see what the numbers look like. We'll see what next week's schedule looks like, and just kind of, I would say right now, take it 1 week at a time. But again, any and all feedback is always appreciated. And I understand that logic. I'm in the same boat of what happens if we're washed out on one track. We had a match race on grass last week. Any other week probably wouldn't have been great, but it worked out. I think we just kind of keep an eye on it for the next week or two, and then make a call maybe after the first 5 weeks of the season have come and gone.
I like it. All right, we're out of time. I got to rock and roll. Want to thank you, Matt Bernier. We'll thank producer AJ for sitting in for producer Craig. Our friends at the Breeders' Cup, of course, especially Justin McDonald, who was actually out in Car Park 2 before, enjoying some of the GBRI hospitality with me, and Haley Amos as well. There's been such big supporters. They're so much fun to work with. We'll thank Callum Hellawell one more time, a name you'll be hearing more of on this network and elsewhere. We're going to thank Michelle Yu, too, of course. Most of all, want to thank all of you, the players, especially those of you who drop comments in here, who are participating in this contest. We'll be back next Thursday and every Thursday through the Breeders' Cup with these Horseplayer Happy Hour events, and we hope you'll support our charities, the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance and the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. This show has been a co-production of the Breeders' Cup and In the Money. On our side, our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatale. May you win all your photos.